We're going straight on, Artie. We're right in. Whatever you're going to say is now taped.
Is now recorded. So you're saying we're now live is what you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How's it going?
It's going good. We got Charles Latorre.
Very good. Very good. I'm trying to get this the social media thing done here. So let me get back to the comments. We're going to do a screen share here in a few minutes.
Can you do the screen share?
Yes.
How can you do that?
You just have to add me. That's all. I'll do it in a second. I didn't have the link before now.
Yeah, I mean, I could add it myself. But you know what? You know more about these guys here, Artie. So you're gonna.
I'm doing it by hand. Well, I could tell you something about most of these people.
Yeah. So you go up and down because if I'm gonna, I
gotta find the tab with the information though, and not all the OCS stuff that I was just looking at. So we're gonna talk today about the Hall of Fame, the Adventure Gaming Hall of Fame, and the members there and how that kind of works out. So you're going to have to put the link in the comments chat because I can't do that, but I will save.
You want me to put the link you send me in the comments chat?
Yes, so that people can look at it.
Oh, I see. Capiche. Capiche.
All right, and then you can add my screen share whenever you like. And we'll start talking about that.
Okay, here's the link. Linky.
Boom.
Splat. Bam. Boom.
So we're not going to talk about, Dan and I talked about this just before. We're not going to talk about awards in general because I think we would need more time and more people to give that subject the treatment it deserves, and we don't have that tonight. But we'll talk about organizing that when the time comes. There you go. Okay, so this is the Academy of Adventure Game Arts and Design. This is part of these days anyway. This is part of GAMA, which is a hobby trade organization for hobby games. That's been around for a long time and is best known for putting on two events. One is the GAMA Trade Show, which happens in Las Vegas or happened in Las Vegas. Neither happened last year, of course. And the other is Origins, of course. And that's another thing that maybe we're not going to get to tonight because that deserves more of a treatment than I think we have space for tonight. Is GAMA running a public-facing event like Origins, a large public-facing event where the GAMA Trade Show is just like for retailers and publishers. So you can't just like sign up to that and go. You got to go with a retailer or publisher.
Artie, is there any way you can zoom in that screen?
Yeah, maybe. Hold on.
Because I'm a blind man. Very nice. Thank you.
All right. So there's two things that get in this Hall of Fame. One is people, and the other is games. The people, once we understand how this situation evolved, I think the people list makes sense. The games list has a few more baffling inclusions. So these are actually listed helpfully in order of the year they were inducted. So we can see that Don Turnbull, who I think of, and maybe he was more important than this, as the head of TSR UK when there was a TSR UK and it's kind of its own separate UK branch of TSR, right?
Where did TSR start? SPI TSR.
TSR. Right? Well, no, SPI was based in New York City. TSR evolved out of a company called Guidon Games, and then that turned into there was some people shuffling that happened. That was Gary Gygax and Don Kay. And then they incorporated, well, they didn't incorporate yet, but they formed TSR Hobbies, which was Gary, Don Kay, and one of the Bloom brothers. And Don Kay passed away, and I think the other Bloom brother bought from his widow Don's share of the company. So yeah, basically,
didn't TSR was a sister company of somebody else?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
So yes, but I'll get to that. So
right.
So the Bloom family owns 2/3 of the company at this point, and Gary owns the other third. Gary eventually gets sent off to California to manage TSR Entertainment, which was produced the D&D cartoon show, for one thing. And if it eventually comes back, sees that the Blooms are mismanaging everything. This is according to Gary, right? So take that for what it's worth. But there were problems, which Gary then attempted to fix. But then the Blooms sold their share of the company to someone named Lorraine Williams, who was the heiress to the Flash Gordon fortune, believe it or not.
Wow.
And she hated gamers, hated games, hated everybody, forced Gary out immediately. Well, I'm sure she didn't. She said she was going to run it just like a business, and she ran it just like a business into the ground.
Oh.
They had to be bailed out. And this was like a serious white knight move on the part of Wizards of the Coast, who came and looked at the books and said, you guys have completely messed this up, but we want to save D&D, so we're nevertheless going to buy the company and absorb all their debt, which was because they were flush and then some with Magic the Gathering money by then, was chump change for them at the time. So they operated TSR as a division under Wizards of the Coast for a certain amount of time, like a year or something like that. And then it just became pretty much Wizards of the Coast. Also in early 1980, so we're talking sometime around 1981, TSR was doing pretty well. SPI was not. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Management problems is probably one of them, but not the only one. The nature of the business was changing, and we'll get to the individual names here. I'm just giving you the historical background for now, and I can scroll down too. There's more names. So SPI found themselves in desperate need of money because they had zero cash. So they got a letter of credit from TSR, and then TSR immediately, and it was secured by SPI's intellectual property assets. And then TSR, within the space of a month or two, called it due, and SPI had spent that money already, so they couldn't pay them back. And TSR essentially kind of moved in and took over SPI's intellectual property. They tried to retain some. One of the first things they did was fire Redmond Simonson. They tried to save some of the people, or I should say they tried to retain some of the people, but those people, some of them just said no, because I'm not moving to Wisconsin, because that was a condition.
Okay.
And then a bunch of those former staffers and associates of SPI then were set up in New York City in an office by Avalon Hill, and that was Victory Games, and that was Mark Herman and those folks. Now, where Gamma comes into this, I'm not familiar with the history of Gamma enough to talk about that, but they started this adventure.
Hold on, Artie,
okay.
Can you name me some prominent games that we would know from TSR other than D&D?
No.
Didn't they have a war game?
Oh yeah. So I could talk about that. So TSR had done war games prior to them taking over SPI.
Right, like Battle of Britain.
That was after they took over SPI, though. There were a couple of, I think the best known board games that were released by TSR before SPI was probably Dungeon, which is basically a D&D board game, even though that's not technically what it was, but it plays like that. I'm oversimplifying. And Fight in the Skies, which turned into Dawn Patrol, which still gets played at Gen Con every year. That's a World War I air combat game. I remember getting Dawn Patrol when in the sort of early to mid 80s and being baffled. This doesn't look like an RPG at all, because it wasn't. It was a role-playing game with a campaign system built, or it was a war game with campaign system built into it. When TSR took over SPI, they operated SPI as a sort of independent imprint run out of TSR. It was just a logo on the box, right? And that's when we say the SPI/TSR brand, that's the Spitzer brand. And they did a bunch of stuff. They reprinted a few things from SPI, like Turtle Swift Sword, and a few others. They did some new stuff, some of which was by reputable designers like Richard Berg. They did a new game in the Great Battles of the American Civil War series called A Gleam of Bayonets, which is still the only version of the Battle of Antietam to be found in that system in either incarnation. Their war games I think there's some hidden gems in there, actually, to be honest, but a lot of them were not that great. and aren't particularly fondly regarded. And their maps were, at least the map for like Terrible Swift Sword and Wellington's Victory, which is another one that they redid, were not up to the Redmond Simonson standard. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Eventually, TSR got one of the first things that they did. Greg Kostikian has talked about this in his article on his website, is shaft the subscribers to S&T and say, we're not going to honor your subscriptions, which alienated like the entire subscriber base.
Well, of course. And hold on, who took that? Who took that over?
So S&T was sold off to 3W. TSR kept it for 2 or 3 years, something like that. I could have the exact dates, but I wasn't that prepared for this. They sold it to 3W, who ran it for 2 or 3 years.
We're talking about strategy and tactics here.
Yes. And then they sold it to Decision. 3W sold it to Decision Games, where it has resided since.
Right.
Since about 1986, or 7 or something like that. Decision has held it since then. And all the other magazines eventually landed with Decision as well, like Moves magazine, which Decision kept going for a while.
Yeah, Decision's got a lot of SPI stuff, eh?
Yes, but some of the rights to the magazine, some of the magazine games, and some other SPI odds and ends ended up getting sold off separately. Most of those landed with Excalibur games. So things like a Mighty Fortress, for example, is you could still get it from Excalibur games. TSR later sold after they had already gotten rid of S&T, they sold off all the rights to their remaining SPI stuff, other than the RPGs, off to Decision as well, meaning that almost all of the intellectual property rights to SPI's catalog, the vast majority of it to get today lies with Decision Games. Not all of it. There's some odds and ends, but mostly it's Decision.
And has he reprinted a lot of that, or has he held back?
Boy, that's another subject I'm not sure we're going to be able to deal with in the proper depth tonight. So they have reprinted some stuff and done straight reprints. They have reprinted some stuff and made changes, and they have created entirely new games using SPI titles for their entirely new games, and they have nothing to do with the original game. For example, their version of Napoleon's Last Battles is pretty much the old Napoleon's Last Battles with nicer updated counters and maps and stuff like that, and a few extra odds and ends. Their World War I game, the World War I Deluxe that they just reprinted, is pretty much the old game with a couple. They expanded the map area just a little bit. Battle for Germany, same thing. On the other hand, there's like Atlantic Wall and Wacht am Rhein, which are completely different games that really, other than being on the same subjects, are not at all similar to the old SPI games. So they have irritated many in the wargaming community.
And I was going to ask you that. What's the consensus amongst wargamers, the company Decision Games? Are they I don't know, are they shaking up whatever, or are they keeping the torch rolling? You know what I'm saying?
It's a great question, because I see, let's be completely open about it, I see a lot of people complaining about Decision Games.
Thank you.
About their product quality, their quality control, their propensity to release new games with old titles, that thereby confusing the marketplace. At the same time, somebody's buying their games. I mean, they've still got the magazines; those don't run themselves, and they're not free to run.
No.
They're a major show sponsor for Origins every single year, with a huge booth right in front of the convention hall. That booth costs them a bundle. So, I mean, and they go to other events too. That's just where I see them.
Yeah.
So clearly, they seem to be doing okay.
Wow.
So I guess the takeaway there is don't assume that people complaining online is necessarily an indicator of anything.
Right.
It's an indicator of people complaining online. That's what online is for, right?
That's right.
So Gamma started this Hall of Fame thing in 1974, and they're still doing it. But what we're going to end up seeing here is the beginning of the list, which Gamma has helpfully provided in alphabetical order, is almost all wargame people. Whereas it gradually starts to expand into people who are artists and publishers and board game people. Most recent inductee, for example, is Reinhold Wittig. I don't even know who he is.
I think there's something written at the upper note of that, what you're showing me here. Scroll back up and you're going to see Reinhold Witting, the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Wittig, Yahtzee, Board Game Geek. In addition, Wolfgang Warsch was recognized as this year's rising star. Okay, and there's a video. You can go watch the video if you want. So, but
and by the way, the link is in the comments.
Yeah. So we see the first 5 people here are all wargame people. Don Turnbull. I'm not sure about Don Turnbull, actually. I'd have to research him. But Dunnigan, Tom Shaw of Avalon Hill, Redmond Simonson, who ran SPI for a while, John Hill, of course, the designer of Squad Leader. And then we start with Gygax, but remember that Gary Gygax had a number of wargame credits before D&D. So that I'm sure he was inducted here on the basis of D&D. David Isby, I'd have to do research on him that I'm not familiar enough with his stuff. Mark Miller, of course, was one of the founding partners of GDW. Better known today for being the guy behind Traveler more than his wargame contributions. Steve Jackson, I presume this to be the US. So there's actually 2 guys in gaming called Steve Jackson. There's Steve Jackson US, the guy behind Steve Jackson Games and Munchkin and GURPS and all that, and Ogre and all that stuff. And there's Steve Jackson UK, who was, I believe, involved with
Whiskey.
That's Michael Jackson.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, we've had that come up before.
Yes.
Steve Jackson UK has done stuff like a lot of stuff with Ian Livingston and that kind of stuff. A lot of UK stuff that involves miniatures. So I don't do anything with it. Interestingly, Charles Roberts is only here in 1982.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, Dave Arnson, the co-designer of D&D, was only in 1984. Dave did not benefit for a long time due to his lack of association with running of TSR, which was what Gary was doing. So he was kind of marginalized as a creator, and that's another long story that we're not going to get to. We have Frank Chadwick, who, of course, is another one of the founding people at GDW.
Yeah.
We have Lou Zocchi, who everybody should know from his ubiquitous presence at every large convention, hawking dice. Lou has also designed a bunch of games and can, I think, might even still sell games. I think he had like a Garage Fire a couple years ago. But he still I saw him at the last Origins I was at.
It's an expensive place to rent a booth, man.
Yes. Now, Lou didn't have a big booth. He just had one little table area, but still, it's not cheap. He's probably paying $1,200 or $1,500 for
easy
4 days.
Yeah.
Greg Stafford, who, of course, was one of the founding people at Chaosium, designer of RuneQuest, and developer of the Glorantha setting. Rick Loomis is interesting because Rick is probably here. I would think the guy behind Flying Buffalo, probably here for his contribution to play-by-mail games. Lou was a big Rick. Sorry. Lou, I'm not aware that Lou Zocchi was involved in this. Rick Loomis actually bought like a many tens of thousands of dollars computer in the 70s or 80s to run play-by-mail games with. Flying Buffalo for years was a huge company in the play-by-mail game space.
Oh,
I actually did that for a while, but although I never played anything from Flying Buffalo. James Ward is designer of Metamorphosis Alpha and I think Gamma World as well. Rick has passed away. Anybody with an asterisk by their name here is deceased. Jim Ward, who I've met, ran TSR, was like the general manager at TSR for a while. Here's our good friend, the late great Richard Berg, who I think everybody here certainly knows about. Sandy Peterson, still with us, now running Peterson Games and is still doing stuff with Chaosium. He was the designer of Call of Cthulhu. Don Greenwood, of course, who pretty much ran Avalon Hill for a long time. Now we start getting into people who are people I will have to explain. Tom Meyer, for example, was one of the primary sculptors for Ralph Partha. And I assume that Ralph Partha, He was one of the primary miniature sculptors for Ral Partha Miniatures.
Okay.
And I assume that's why he is here. Don Featherstone was another one of those UK folks, I believe. Mike Stackpole was, I think, involved in BattleTech, and I know wrote some of the BattleTech novels, which were actually pretty good.
Hey,
and
man, the people that you're naming here, man, is the industry.
Well, Stackpole's writing Star Wars novels now.
Bloody hell!
So he's got the wheelbarrows full of cash at this point. Nigel Findlay was a designer. I don't want to say anything else because I think I might be conflating him with somebody else. I know he did RPG design. Julie Guthrie is an artist. Jordan Weissman was one of the founders of FASA, who gave us things like BattleTech, and they started out doing third-party products for Traveller, among other things. He's still involved in the industry as well. Liz Danforth, artist, fabulous artist. Darwin Bromley was the main person at Mayfair Games.
Well, hold on, Elizabeth Danforth. What boxes did she do, or maps, or something?
I remember seeing her do a lot of interior art more than covers.
Okay,
but she did a lot of interior stuff for Steve Jackson Games and TSR, and other publishers as well.
Okay,
and there's a lot of artists. When you get to the end of the list, you see there's a lot of artists on here. Darwin Bromley was the main person at Mayfair Games. He's passed away. Richard Garfield, of course, is the Magic the Gathering person. Greg Kostikian on this list. I mean, he was around during the SPI days and has a number of significant RPG designs to his credit as well. So he's done a lot of different stuff. And I wouldn't quibble with him being on here. Larry Elmore, of course.
Artie, I just want to go back to Richard Garfield. Is it true, this story, that Richard Garfield couldn't get his games printed? So the company said, can you just do a little stupid card game type thing? And, he did magic.
I can't vouch for that, but that's the story.
Bloody hell!
He wanted to publish Robo Rally, and they said, we're a small company. We've done like 2 things, and we got sued by Palladium. So we really can't afford to print this expensive card games, because card games are expensive to print. Or this expensive board game, because board games are expensive to print. So let's do this card game instead, and that turned out to be Magic the Gathering. The board game was Robo Rally, which is actually a lot of fun if you played it. So that's I can't vouch for the truth of that. That is the story. I have also heard that story. I can't provide a citation for it. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Larry Elmore, of course, friend of mine, was actually took Larry's class on how to do fantasy art, which is neat. Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss, who are responsible for a bunch of D&D innovations, but specifically Dragonlance, which is still going. They have just signed a new agreement with Wizards of the Coast to do more Dragonlance stuff. James Ernest is the person behind Cheap Ass Games.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And they did some fairly neat stuff, some of which is still around in less cheap ass formats.
Yeah, Exploding Cow.
And Kill Dr. Lucky is another one. I'm not sure what he's designed, but he might be the designer of both of those for all I know. But he was the main guy main person at Cheap Ass Games. John Kovalik is a cartoonist who's done some really nice work. Peter Atkinson, of course, originally started out running Wizards of the Coast, eventually sold it to Hasbro, eventually then bought Gen Con from Hasbro, and is currently the owner of Gen Con. I have met Peter, I think 3 times now, and he's a pretty nice guy.
He bought from Hasbro.
Gen Con, yeah.
Wow, he's got some deep pockets, this man.
He was running the company that invented Magic the Gathering. So I think Peter's doing okay. David Cook, who was another one of the really important designers from TSR, designed a bunch of D&D stuff, as well as things for like Star Frontiers, for example. R.A. Salvatore, of course, is the Drizzt guy. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what R.A. Salvatore has done besides write about fiction in the Forgotten Realms. I assume he has other credits, and honestly, that stuff's so popular that maybe that's enough to get him in. I don't know.
Oh, I see.
Larry Bond, who is the designer of Harpoon, among other things.
And what is that Harpoon?
It's a modern naval game. I've literally ran into him, as in chest bumped him accidentally coming out of an elevator at Origins one year. Bob Sherritt was another one of the BattleTech principals involved with FASA. Ed Greenwood, of course, is the Forgotten Realms person with whom that originated. TSR got a hold of that and made a lot of changes. Rainier Knizia is, of course, that guy that's from Germany that's done a bunch of games. Can
I plug something here?
Oh, go right ahead.
I will be interviewing Rainier Knizia soon.
Oh, well, that's a hell of an interview.
Well, and you know what? He is not what you think he is.
Okay. What do I think he is?
Well, what do you think he is?
I mean, I could, assume that he's German and therefore he's very uptight.
That's what I thought you thought he was.
But that's probably not the case. That's
completely wrong.
There's reasons for that stereotype, but generally speaking, the Germans I've talked to are really not like that.
That's right.
So, Klaus Teuber, he's another one of those German people. The late Lauren Wiseman, another of the founding people at GDW, and who was who was notably involved with Traveller for a long time. Duke Seafried, who did, I don't really know a lot about Duke's contributions to the hobby. I do know he was involved in miniatures and RPGs and ran events at Gen Con for a long time. Otherwise, I can't tell you too much because a lot of what he's best known for is on the miniature side, which I'm not really into. Aaron Alston, RPG designer, did a bunch of stuff for Champions, some really noteworthy stuff for Champions, did a wonderful book called Lands of Mystery for the Justice Incorporated RPG back in the day. Jolly Blackburn is the Knights of the Dinner Table, Jolly Blackburn. I've met Jolly as well. We actually did a live reading from Knights of the Dinner Table at a convention that he was the guest of honor at, and I was one of the people. That's the
first time I hear a first name, Jolly.
Jolly. I don't know if that's his legal first name or not. Maybe it's not. This might be the last notable wargaming person on the list. Maybe, I don't know. Roger McGowan.
Yeah.
So we all know who he is.
Yes.
Dennis Mize is a miniature sculptor, as far as I am aware. Mike Pondsmith is a RPG designer, very notable for the currently pretty hot Cyberpunk. What was at the time Cyberpunk 2020? A game about the dystopia that is the year 2020. How about that? Released in like 1990 or something like that. Alan Moon is a name I don't recognize.
Are you kidding me, man? For real?
I'm not Keith Moon.
No. Okay, so Alan Moon used to be, he's a war gamer, by the way, and he used to write in The General. He was one of the contributors in The General, and I think he worked for Avalon Hill for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then he decided to make a game called, what the hell is it called?
I didn't know who he was. How should I know what the hell?
No, this guy's huge. The train game.
Oh, Ticket to Ride?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I could see why he's in here.
Yeah.
Jonathan Tweet has done a lot. Designer of one of my favorite games, Ars Magica. Was involved in 3rd edition D&D too, I believe, and I saw like influence from Ars Magica in 3rd edition D&D personally, as well as Rollmaster, which is where Monty Cook came from. I don't know if he's on this list. Oh, he's on this list as well. Monty came from Iron Crown Enterprises and had been doing work with Rollmaster. Alex Randolph, that's another name I don't recognize. But he is the late Alex Randolph, or she, as the case may be. Sid Saxon was another UK person.
Huge.
I've heard a lot. And again, I think the reason why I'm not particularly familiar with his actual credits is probably miniatures related as well. Eric Wojennick was a RPG designer. Late Eric Wojennick tragically passed away very early, was the designer of the Amber Diceless role-playing game, did a lot of stuff with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG and other stuff in the purgatory that is working for Palladium Books. Lauren Coleman, it's a name I don't recognize. Lisa Stevens, I think, was one of the people at one of the big people at Wizards of the Coast. Here's Monty Cook. Here's Kevin Simbayeta, who is the owner of Palladium Books. John Nephew, who is one of the principals at Atlas Games, who has done a lot of noteworthy stuff in both the board game space and the card game space and the RPG space. They are the current publishers of one of my favorite RPGs, Ars Magica.
Thanks, Charles.
Which is like one RPG where I have like credits in the book, by the way. Mike Elliott is another name I don't recognize. Janelle Jaquez, anybody who was role-playing in or looking at role-playing products in the early 80s will recognize Janelle's art, which was almost ubiquitous at the time. She did a huge amount of stuff for a lot of different publishers. A lot of it is really good stuff, too. Eric Lang, I'm not sure what specific games Eric has done.
Well,
I think
isn't he a big BGG guy, Eric Lang?
I don't know if he's a big. I've talked to him on Twitter. I mean, but I don't really know. I know he's a board game person and doesn't really do anything in my space. So that's pretty much all I know. Ken St. Andre is the designer of Tunnels and Trolls. I am not. Ken's still around and still trucking with Tunnels and Trolls. Gerald Brom, who was for a long time just Brom, was one of the TSR artists that sort of established the look of the Dark Sun setting. And then we have these last three people, none of whom I don't know who any of them are.
Well, no, Vlada Shvatil.
Okay.
He's a God. I'm going to say Polish, but I'm wrong. And he did. I can't remember names anymore. Space Trucker.
Okay.
Really, really successful games. And he taught the guy who did Robinson Crusoe, Chevicek.
Okay.
And in Euro games, these are some, Mage Knight. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And these are some serious games, man, in the Euro world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's these. Well, I mean, yes, but I'm not as familiar with the Euro designers, to be honest. And you see that I'm actually a little surprised to see people of interest to me inducted into the Hall of Fame as recently as they have been. Janelle did a lot of stuff for Steve Jackson, for Metagaming, I think for TSR too, actually. So all over the place. Now, here we get into products and publications, most of which are games. And these started to be inducted in 1977.
And okay, so when was the first inductee? Up on top, the people?
74.
So they decided to put games 5 years after or something.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
All right.
Now, the first thing inducted is D&D, which is not surprising, and then a game called Empire from International Team, which I think I have seen, and which I believe could be a set of miniatures rules, but I could be wrong. Somebody in the chat will probably correct me on that. Ace of Aces, there you go.
Of course.
Third game inducted, and spawned a fantasy equivalent too, with the little booklets for different fantasy characters called Lost Worlds.
One of those?
Nope.
Have you ever played?
Nope.
I'm wondering how good they are, man.
That's still around too, so I think it's probably doing okay.
Yeah, and I think you have to buy individual books.
You did back in the day, I can tell you that. Now I have no idea how it's published. Diplomacy, of course, from Avalon Hill. Avalon Hill was not the original publisher of Diplomacy. I forget who was. So it's interesting that they list them here under Avalon Hill, but definitely it was published by Avalon Hill for the longest period of time. Dragon Magazine, which started out as the Strategic Review, ran for 6 or 8 issues or something like that, and then turned into Dragon Magazine. For a long time, the most expensive single gaming product I ever bought was a copy of Dragon Magazine number 4, which cost me about $90 at the time.
Holy
which was
moly.
a lot of money back in the, this would have been in the 90s. That was the Empire of the Petal Throne issue, where it was all Empire of the Petal Throne Tecmo stuff. It's an awesome issue, and I still have it. It's not going anywhere. Risk, which I am ashamed to say is on this list. As a teenager, I played the hell out of Risk.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, at 3 o'clock in the morning after a 2-4.
Yeah, well, sometimes, yeah, but I mean, even you know, so we were playing it sober too. Axis and Allies. Interesting. There's a big jump here between 1977 and then the next inductee for a game is in 1993. I'm not sure what the story is behind that. Call of Cthulhu, of course, we're all familiar with that, or at least by reputation. Advanced D&D. This is probably in there because it was TSR's position for a long time that Advanced D&D was a separate game from D&D, which was not really an accurate statement. Cosmic Encounter, which is
I hate that game.
Published by Wizards of the Coast, I believe, or Avalon Hill, or Hasbro somewhere. That's a great game, but don't play it with people you're friends with.
Yeah, exactly. I can't do it.
Same as Diplomacy. Traveler, of course, which is the greatest game of all time. Battletech, Mechs and Vehicles. Interesting that they put a miniatures line in here and not Battletech, the game.
Yeah, I know.
The miniatures make it.
Yeah.
Berg's Review of Games, published by Richard Berg, inducted 1977, as late as 1977. And in fact, The Courier and Fire and Movement are here as well. Illuminati, which is a pretty fun game. I've never played it. I've played both versions, the original version and the CCG version, and they're both pretty good. Middle Earth PBM. I never played that. I think I got the materials for it at one point. That's the play-by-mail thing by Game Systems. For all I know, it might still be around. Nuclear War, which is a lot of fun, and you can play it drunk. Here is Strategy and Tactics, inducted 1997, the same year as Berg's Review of Games and Fire and Movement. So apparently it was magazine year. Yeah. Magic the Gathering, inducted 1998. That happened probably relatively speedily. Yeah. Since it completely remade the entire hobby. Yes. Champions from Hero Games, which is sort of still around. That's a superhero RPG. One of my very first RPGs was Champions, actually. One of the first 4 or so. D&D, Champions, Traveler, RuneQuest are my first 4. Okay. GURPS. This the generic universal role-playing system from Steve Jackson. Still in publication. You can buy some of it in hardcover and a whole lot in PDF. Settlers of Catan. I hate that game. Shouldn't surprise anybody. It's a good game. It's not a game in my space. I don't want to play it. I just don't like the atmosphere, man. Yeah. There's literally a Catan catalog. Not a catalog by the publisher. A Catan catalog. That's like a 60-page full-color catalog of different Catan products. Oh my God. It's like Rickshaw. I think there's an actual product, which I may or may not be making up, called Rickshaws of Catan that you can buy as an expansion to your Catan experience. I might be making that up, and I might not. Squad Leader. Big shock that's here. Best-selling... Yeah, Warhammer 40,000. Interesting that the Warhammer Fantasy game that predates it by a number of years is not on this list, at least so far. Starfleet Battles, that's about as groggy a space combat game as you would possibly want. Is it really? It's a very detailed game? Yes, very detailed. It's not that hard to play at a basic level, but it's a hard game to be any good at, and there's a lot of rules. There's like a lot of rules. But you don't necessarily have to know all the rules to play. I reliably play Starfleet Battles a couple times a year. Napoleon's Battles, which I believe we're talking about that. Yeah, the miniatures rules from Avalon Hill, and I'm a little bit baffled by their inclusion here. And maybe they're miniatures, so I don't know. I don't remember ever playing those or seeing those or talking to anybody who ever played them. I don't feel like they were particularly popular set of Napoleonic miniatures rules, but I could be wrong. You're talking about what? Napoleon's Battles. Okay. I know there were supplements for it that Avalon Hill did too, so presumably somebody liked it. And the fact that it had Avalon Hill on it, and was able to take advantage of Avalon Hill's distribution system as opposed to the people doing, DBA or whatever, where that stuff's hard to find. It was very amateurishly printed, might even still be for all I know. So that may have been, maybe it was bigger than I remember. Let me put it that way. Pendragon, that's the King Arthur Pendragon RPG by Greg Stafford.
Okay, that's not the Morgan game.
No, that's an RPG called King Arthur Pendragon. It's by Greg Stafford. Was originally published by Chaosium, drifted around for a while through Green Knight Games, and went to White Wolf for a while, and now it's back with Chaosium, who are working on a new edition of it. I've played it. It is a wonderful game. You play knights in the time of King Arthur, and Arthur's kind of a background character. The Amber Diceless RPG, which is a really interesting, what it sounds like. It's based on the Amber books by Roger Zelazny. And it is a very interesting game that run completely by GM Fiat. Acquire, which I have actually a copy of, and I would like to play it at some point. I feel like Acquire is a classic game and deserves to be, and it's actually a really elegant and interesting design.
Who's the design? What is the designer?
No idea, but it is ancient. It was originally published by 3M. So, our 60s game, and it was released in the 60s, I'm pretty sure. Twixt, which is another 3M game that went to Avalon Hill. Now, this is another one where I'm not sure. Maybe it's just that it wasn't my thing, and that's why I don't think of it as having been that big, but I don't think of it as having been that big. Dominion, which is that card construction game.
Now, I played so much of that, man.
I've never played it. I do know that at Origins, I see a lot of it, and I do know that there are a million supplemental boxes for it. So presumably it is very popular. Very popular. Munchkin, I despise Munchkin. I hate it. I can't stand playing it. I never played it. It is like a jokey dungeon crawl game.
I know.
On paper, it sounds like something I would like.
But it's too corny.
I tonally dislike it. There's a tonal disconnect between me and Munchkin. I hate it. I don't want to play it ever again. Apples to Apples is a fabulous game to play while intoxicated. Mage Knight, I've never played, but I have played Hero Clicks, which is basically the same kind of thing with the clicky-based miniatures, and that's a lot of fun. That's a Schwatil Mage Knight. I assume so, yeah. That's the fantasy miniatures clicky-based thing. Yeah. Yahtzee.
Hold on.
I'm not sure what artistic...
Let's give credit where credit's due, okay? Because that mechanic started there. And you know how many games have the Yahtzee mechanic?
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
You got to give them that, man.
I've played Yahtzee, and there's nothing wrong with Yahtzee. I find it difficult to take it. I mean, why is Chutes and Ladders not on here? There's other games that use that mechanic. Why is Monopoly not on here? I mean, and that's the category of games that I think Yahtzee belongs in. Yeah. I wouldn't put it on here, but I'm not in charge. So, and then our latest other product is BGG, oddly enough, which actually I think is an interesting addition. Yeah, because BGG is a cornerstone of the board gaming hobby as it exists today. So, I appreciate that this is like a dynamic list that is changing as time goes on, and why not include a web resource? So what's Kenneth saying here? Let's not forget Knuckles. That's a dice game of some kind. Jeffrey says, what about Stratego? Why is Stratego not on here? Lead Magnet asked about U-Boat. U-Boat is just too recent. That's all. Yeah. Oh, I saw a copy of U-Boat for sale at the local half-price books the other day. I did not buy it.
You got something against that game?
No. I just don't. I think it has earned undeserved praise, which doesn't mean it's bad or unfun. It just means
is this undeserved praise because the CSR showcased them? If they weren't in the CSRs, would it make a difference?
Then they wouldn't have earned undeserved praise, because that is the undeserved praise I am thinking of. You're right. And it's not that it's undeserved because the game sucks. I'm not saying that.
No, I know what you're saying.
I think it's undeserved because it was given an award in a category in which it didn't fit. Yeah. Do you remember the outrage when the Grammys said, we are going to have an award this year for best heavy metal album? And who won Best Heavy Metal Album? Jethro Tull.
I remember.
Yes. Now, I love Jethro Tull.
But they're not heavy metal at all.
But come on, right? So they're about as much heavy metal as America is.
Yeah. I understand. And I mean, I've got some inside scoop because I'm on the board, believe it or not.
Well, I thought you were going to say you got inside scoop and what Jethro Tull's up to nowadays.
No.
Because that would be very valuable.
Yeah, no. And you know what? I mean, Ian Anderson, it's time to pack it in terms of vocals.
Oh, maybe. He's done a Christmas album.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, which I haven't listened to and which I'm tempted to buy just because
it's not new. It's quite old, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, it's not new. I keep every Christmas I think about buying Ian Anderson's Christmas album, and I never do.
Yeah.
But I've seen Jethro Tull live. It was a wonderful show.
Yeah.
So, Peter Rushton points out that Acquire was designed by Sid Saxon. He is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Which I think means that Sid was not from the UK. I just think of guys named Sid as being automatically from the UK.
I'm gonna try to find something here. Keep going, Artie. Keep going. Hold on a second.
Oh, Ken Clovey. I know what he's talking about now. Where you smashed people's hands with the deck. I remember that.
This there, like smash. No.
Yeah, more or less. You're like shuffling the deck and wham, you slam somebody's knuckles with the deck. It's a thing. It's like the Irish stand down of card games, apparently. Anyway.
Bloody hell.
So, I mean, I gotta say, I could probably name names who I think probably should be in here. But as far as the people go, I don't really see anybody to argue with other than these names I don't recognize. Who I would feel obliged to actually research before saying they don't belong here. Everybody else looks like they belong here.
There's like we were talking about the mechanics of Yahtzee.
Yeah.
Yes, Stratego, yes, Monopoly, for God's sake. Yahtzee has to be included in look, man, it's like a Magic the Gathering. It changed the way the mechanics of rolling dice, man.
It's certainly been. I mean, I guess there have been plenty of copies of the mechanism. That's almost certainly true. But I mean, I could say the same thing about any other popular mainstream board game that sells millions of copies a year, like Parcheesi or Sorry, or
well, you said Snakes and Ladders,
Stratego, or why is backgammon not on here, for God's sake? It's 5,000 years old. Why should it be on here if Yahtzee's on here?
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
As far as the games, only ones that ring false to me are like Napoleon's Battles, Twixt, and maybe Yahtzee. And two of those are maybe I feel like maybe I just wasn't aware that they were as popular as they were. That's plausible. So.
Oh, man. I'm trying to find the Knizia intro just for the hell of it, but I don't think I have it.
Now, when's that interview going up?
I don't know. I'm to be in touch with him.
Okay. So you haven't done it yet?
No. We're to be in touch, yeah. And I don't think it's going to be a live thing because of the time differences. Because he is in Germany.
Right. Which is 5 hours or so off from us. The man sincerely is a genius. As are a lot of board game designers. I won't argue with that. He's designed a number of really, really influential games, and really well regarded games. I think he's done some stuff that I've played that I didn't care for too, but some of that's just a thematic approach that I think doesn't work for me. Like Palazzo, for example.
That board game, like a lot of board game designers, that was his hobby type thing, right?
Sure.
You know what he did for a thingy for his job?
Not offhand, no.
I think it was CEO of Deutsche Bank.
Oh, so I don't know about that.
Oh no, he's like really up there in the Bank of USA, Bank of Germany. It's this guy.
Okay, well, a guy like that probably has plenty of time and money to engage in his hobbies and a substantial safety net to practice his craft before it becomes successful.
He quit the banking to do games full time, man.
Well, at that point, if he's a big banking officer, he's probably got tons of money anyway.
Oh, he's gotta be loaded.
So ask him for some money.
Yeah, that's good. That's so, my mother.
Oh, by the way, can I have some money?
My mother would always say, "So how much did you get paid from that?" Ah, come on,
Yeah.
I didn't get paid nothing. You're an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Where is Twister? Why is Twister not on here? Twister changed the world when Bill and Ted played it with death. I mean, come on. Twister should be on here, right?
Yeah.
So, Uno. Isn't Uno an early example of a deck destruction game?
Yeah.
Why is that not on here?
Okay.
So, I mean, the point is that virtually everything here is a hobby game, even something like Acquire, which is kind of a mainstream design, but still was a hobby game. I mean, it's a game that was around in our hobby, where Yahtzee has nothing to do with this hobby. How you want to define this hobby.
So what's the benchmark? Who are these people voting for this?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Join the Academy. Who can join the Academy? Let's find out how you join. Oh, probably not.
Also, this is the Academy?
These are probably award winners, actually. Application, apply here. Let's apply. Let's not actually apply.
No.
Okay, so it looks like you need some kind of professional qualification. So
yeah,
I'm so tempted to live on YouTube put in a fake application.
And so this is an Origins Award thing, right?
This is the Academy of Adventure Gaming Arts and Design, which I think is not the same as the Origins Award. The Origins Award runs off a popular vote. So every award, I guess we're about out of time. We got a few minutes.
Yeah.
This is why I didn't want to get into the topic of awards in general, because every awards show has problematic things, right? There was a hubbub in I think this year, might have been last year, about the Oscars, about a film produced in America, starring Americans, with an American cast and an American crew, not being eligible for Best Picture because the film's not in English. It's in Korean, I think. It's about, immigrants. But English is not the language. So it could only be nominated for Best International Picture. Every single award has this problem come up. The Hugo Awards exploded a couple of years ago in the science fiction world. There are, stuffing the ballot box problems all over the place.
I'm sorry, Artie. I'm sorry. That's not what I wanted to do.
Was that Rainer Knizia?
Yeah. Near the end of the show, I'll put it on.
Okay. Was he wearing a bow tie?
I'm done. I don't want to say anything.
Okay. All right. We'll keep it in suspense. But I was so distracted by that. I have no idea.
I'm sorry.
Every awards show has problems, right? Every awards show has things that happen. In a lot of cases, if there's a lot of categories every year where somebody gets slighted, I'm asking this, knowing the audience here. Should Saving Private Ryan have won Best Picture instead of Shakespeare in Love? I'm going to guess that 95% of this audience here tonight will say yes. It absolutely deserves, and Shakespeare in Love should have not won that
Who
award.
was the director for Shakespeare in Love?
I don't remember offhand.
And where is it now?
It's a good movie. I've seen it. It's a good movie. Saving Private Ryan was a movie that you saw in the theater and you're like, whoa. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Shakespeare in Love is a good movie, right? It didn't blow anybody. She was in it. Ralph Joseph Fiennes and Ben Affleck's actually a small part. There's a great Ben Affleck line where they're trying to convince him to participate in the play. He's like this Shakespearean actor. And it's like, what is the play called? And they're trying to get him to take, knowing what the play's about, they're trying to get him to take the role of Mercutio. What is the play called? It is called Mercutio. Then I will play. It's a great, perfect Ben Affleck line too. So it's a good movie, but it's, I mean, come on, it's a movie that I think a lot of anybody in this audience is going to definitely say Saving Private Ryan should have won Best Picture that year, right?
We're a little bit biased here, right?
Well, yes. I mean, we're selecting for that answer here in the audience tonight, but still, it's
well, we have
the point is that you can always complain. Here. What's that?
Lead Magnet doesn't think Saving Private Ryan is.
That's not honestly. I'm not going there. I'm not going there for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
One of which is that I was not impressed by that specifically. So.
Also, okay, you want me to get you out?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I can kill it too.
That's funny, man. I mean, that's fine.
So.
Yeah. So let me show you this is who Reiner Knizia was, and I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised.
I am Reiner Knizia.
Hold on. Why don't I have volume? Where's good volume?
Stop talking over it.
Hi, I am Reiner Knizia, and you are watching No Enemies Here Wargaming News. Okay. Hi, I'm Sid Saxon. No? Hi, I am Reiner Knizia, and you are watching No Enemies Here Wargaming News. Okay, now I got it. Hi, I am Reiner Knizia, yeah? Reiner Knizia, and you are watching No Prisoners Taken. No. Oh, this is so small, I can't read this. Hi, I am Reiner Knizia, and you are watching No Enemies Here Wargaming News. Yes, now I got it. Hi, I am Reiner Knizia, and you are watching No Enemies Here Wargaming News. Yo-hey!
That's pretty great, actually.
First of all, I thought a big name like this, because of the banking status that he has, man, this guy's like royalty, man, when it comes to that. I mean,
I don't know about you. If I had that kind of change, I'd be laid back as hell. You know what I'm saying?
He's laid back, man. You know what I'm saying?
So I do understand what you are saying.
Yeah.
So Ann Toyle mentions that Shakespeare in Love has been tainted by association with Harvey Weinstein. Yes, that's true. That was one of those Miramax pictures where the Miramax had like the Miramax machine going, and that was credited for getting them that award, among many other Miramax movies.
Oh, man. So, that guy Weinstein, man, what a scumbag.
Well, isn't he? Is he dead?
Not yet.
Okay. Maybe that was... Maybe that was the other dirtbag.
Yeah, you're thinking about the other dirtbag.
Yeah, some other dirtbag's dead. Is all I know.
God.
But yeah.
Anyway,
so what are we going to talk about next week?
Well, and you know what? Why don't we have someone in chat say something, and if we like it, we'll take it, and if we don't, tell them to go to where.
That's a great idea. Everybody make suggestions about.
Come on, we got 31 people. We got 31 people watching. Artie, you know when we're on your house, we got 80 people. When we're at my house, we got 30 people.
We didn't. Well, I don't know how many people are here. So
32.
32. Well, you're going to have to look at the numbers after the fact. I don't know. I mean, I can only explain the effect that. I don't know. Actually, that's a good point. I mean, I have live chats on my channel every week, so that might be a factor. So. Game mechanics that suck and why? Well, that's not a bad choice, but I probably would want to. I would want to home in on and Toil. That's a great topic, not a topic I am capable of weighing in on. I don't think, because I don't play enough general board games that aren't war games. I don't. That number is not 0, but it's not very high.
So Troy here Would you be versed enough to say?
It depends on the mechanic. If it's I would probably want to zoom in on a particular mechanic, whether it's CDGs or chit pull or zones of control or whatever. Yeah, I think we could. I mean, if we limited that to wargaming mechanics, then sure, I think I could probably weigh in on it.
Wargaming mechanics, yes, of course.
War games about battles with beverage names like Brandywine or Cognac. There's a battle of Cognac, really? I mean, maybe there could be. I don't know.
Oh man! So you know what? This one struck me, but what do you say?
So sure, I guess well, we could talk about that. That's true. Game mechanics that suck.
Look at this.
Errata, are they inevitable? That's another good question.
That's a good one.
That's a great question.
The guy must be a lawyer.
And, well, or a wargamer, you know? So, I mean, how much bitching do we see in wargaming whenever there's the tiniest bit of errata? And sometimes there's a lot of errata and it's perfectly justified. Sometimes there's a small, a modest errata and we make way too big a deal out of it. Sometimes we don't make a big enough deal about it. But I suspect that there's, well, maybe we should save that for next week.
Errata?
So let's do errata next week.
All right. So
and that'll be on my channel. So
your house, and we're going to have like 100,000 people. And here we have 30 people. People.
Could be. But these are 30 of the finest people.
Thank you.
So.
All righty. Hey,
so,
thanks people for being there. Artie, thanks for doing this again.
Absolutely.
And it's supper time, I think.
Oh, yep. It's I eat before the show because otherwise I'm gonna be like, so, and we can't have that.
Okay, so it's errata at Artie's house.
Yep, there we go. All right, everybody have a great night.
Artie, I'm just gonna kill it. I'm killing it.
Kill it.